Wahid Invest is probably the biggest Islamic fintech globally right now, with over 100,000 customers and millions under management. But is it the right investment for you? And what do they actually put the money in? And what are the alternatives to Wahid? In this video, we're going to do a detailed review of Wahid and share both the good and the bad and help you make an informed decision about your investment. If you're new to this channel, Islamic Finance Guru, or IFG for short, is a halal investment and personal finance community where we analyze and review and compare all the different products coming out of the Islamic finance world. Our mission is to help Muslims get wealthier globally and put their money to work. If that sounds up your street, then do please smash the like button and just gently stroke the subscribe icon and join us on our journey, and we'll share all our findings and learnings as we go along. In this video, we'll be covering the following questions. What is Wahid? What do they invest your money into? Is it safe? Is it going to make you rich? How much does it cost? What are the alternatives? And finally, should you go for it? We'll be doing a very detailed review of Wahid in this video, but I appreciate we won't be able to cover all the questions you may have. So if you'd like to ask me any questions or ask the community of very active people and knowledgeable people any questions, then please do join our Telegram groups. All the links are below, so that you can benefit from that community. I'll also be sharing my detailed research notes and stock picks during the course of this year. So if you'd like access to those, then please do join our community. Wahid Invest is a robo-advisor. A robo-advisor is like a halfway house between you doing DIY picking of the stocks and funds yourself and handing over your money to a financial advisor to do it all for you completely bespoke. With DIY stock picking, you have to do your own research and find the best way to actually buy that stock or fund, and then buy it and then look after it on an ongoing basis to make sure that nothing weird and wonderful is happening in the market. With a financial advisor, on the other hand, they do cost a lot more, but you'll get a completely bespoke plan specific to you that caters in your pension and your retirement and your personal protection needs, for example, insurance concerns, and your family cash flows as well. And the financial advisor will prepare a holistic plan for your entire family and for your entire life from a financial perspective and give that to you. But it does cost a pretty penny. A robo-advisor, on the other hand, is like this halfway house where they don't go into so much detail that a financial advisor does and make it completely bespoke, but at the same time, so for someone who doesn't know much about investing, they will actually create these pre-packaged portfolios that you can select from, and they vary in terms of the risk. So you're selecting like an ultra conservative or an ultra aggressive. So depending on your risk appetite, you can choose the right portfolio that makes sense for you. And Wahid have a list of these that you can choose from. And of course, they're not completely bespoke to you, and they don't take into account your wider personal circumstances, but they are a great way of getting some low-level advice so that you're not completely just punting in the dark if you don't know anything about investment. Each of these portfolios is made up of a subtly different combination of different assets. So for example, the ultra-aggressive portfolio puts 95% of the money into stocks, whereas the ultra-conservative one puts 90% plus of all the money into sukuk. And you might be asking, hang on, what's this sukuk business going on? Don't worry, let me explain all of these in much more detail now. Wahid Invest invests your money into 5 broad areas. You've got global equities, you've got emerging market equities, you've got sukuk, then you've got gold, and then finally, some of it will be held in cash. So that's 5 broad areas. And they are in order, roughly speaking, of risk as well. So equities are the most high risk, high reward element of all of these. Then you've got sukuk, which are fixed return products. So lower volatility, they don't go up and down as much and they're a bit more stable. But at the same time, you are exposed to a little bit of risk still. And then you've got gold, which is pretty safe, but again, you are exposed to the risk of gold prices going up and down. And then finally, you've got cash, and cash is, very safe. Within the global stocks bucket, Wahid Invest prefers to put your money into the following 2 funds. And with the emerging market stocks, they prefer to put it into this fund. These are pretty solid, mainstream, large funds, and they themselves hold a whole range of different stocks all across the world. And so what that means is that your money, when you put in £100 into Wahid, is diversified with that £100 into hundreds of different companies. That means that it's much lower risk and it keeps your money safer overall. The emerging market stocks are typically a bit more volatile and give higher risk, higher reward than the global stocks. And that's because emerging markets are emerging markets, right? So they're going to be growing faster, but then also they have their own problems which a maturer, more stable economy doesn't. Sukuk are the Islamic equivalent of mainstream bonds. They offer a fixed return over a period of a year, 10 years, 5 years. Sukuk, however, are not as easy to get hold of as bonds are. So this is actually one of the perks of Wahid, because you can get access to Sukuk, which otherwise are very difficult to get access to, because there just aren't that many of them. And the other thing that you need to bear in mind about Sukuk are they are linked to an underlying asset usually. So that means that they are a little bit higher risk than your mainstream just bond that has been issued by a large government that says that we're just going to pay you back a debt. The other thing that you need to bear in mind is that some of the Sukuk issues are actually in countries like Saudi Arabia or Indonesia and various other countries. So that means that the returns that you get will be pegged to that currency. So if that currency weakens or strengthens, then your returns will reflect that as well. And mostly that's a good thing, especially for the people in the UK because of Brexit and the pound taking a bit of a hit. But as the pound starts strengthening over the next few years, there could be a bit of a decline that we see there. But it's not too much to worry about, but it's something to bear in mind. And then you've got gold and cash, and they're fairly self-explanatory. Wahid Invest is very safe. They're regulated in UK, the USA, various other countries. So that means that they have to uphold a standard and a care towards their customers that someone who wouldn't be regulated doesn't. The other thing is that the money that you give them isn't actually held in Wahid's account. It's held in a third-party custody account, which is regulated and looked after by someone else who is there specifically to look after that money. So that means if Wahid were to go bust, then your money would still be safe because it's not actually part of Wahid. Wahid Invest is honestly a boring investment. And I say that as a compliment because the best investments are the ones that just steadily churn away and start adding up over time. In investment, there isn't really such a thing as get rich quick. It does happen sometimes, but the much safer, more reliable option is the stuff that Wahid Invest and others do. That said, Wahid Invest's return aren't actually that bad. Over the last 3 years, if you look at this graph, it is offering around 12% annual returns on its aggressive portfolio. And in its conservative portfolio, on the other hand, the returns are around 5%, which is also pretty decent given that it's the ultra-conservative portfolio. I think this is partly due to the currency exchange point that I was talking about earlier, but that's still pretty good overall. And over 10 years, therefore, you would walk away with roughly 3x your money. So if you put in £100, you would walk away with £300. That's pretty decent. But I hear you asking, how much does this cost? And could I actually just do this by myself without paying Wahid anything? Let's dive in. So Wahid Invest charges a 0.99% fee. In other words, it's a 1% fee. Additionally, it makes you pay 0.62% on top of that. And these are fees for the fund, or these are the market spread. These are not payments going to Wahid Invest itself, and they are a necessary part of you investing, and you would have to pay that regardless of where you went. How does this compare to the mainstream? Here, I think Wahid don't do so well. So Nutmeg, which is a mainstream robo-advisor in the UK, offer you a portfolio for around 0.62% all in, and that compares to the 1.62% that Wahid offer. Now, to be fair to Wahid, the reason why a big chunk of that fee is higher is because the funds that Wahid invest in are just charging more money. There are not actually that many Islamic funds out there, and so they have a limited choice on what they can go for, whereas Nutmeg can choose just anything in the entire market. However, having said that, Nutmeg do charge just 0.45%. So of that 0.62% fee, 0.45% is what Nutmeg actually take away, which is considerably cheaper than the 0.99% that Wahid charge. So Wahid are more expensive than the mainstream. I would hope that as Wahid grow, that price is brought down, but right now they are more expensive. There is actually a wider point here, which is, you shouldn't always go for the cheapest option when you are investing. So, Nutmeg has historically struggled to make any profits. And if it doesn't work that out, then ultimately Nutmeg will go bust. Now, I'm not saying it will, but what I'm saying is that it might be better sometimes to go for the slightly higher and more expensive option, but you know that at least that business model works, and so it's going to actually survive long enough. I would want to give my money to some company that I know has a good business model that means that it won't go bust. So sometimes it isn't always the best thing to go for the cheapest option. So the first alternative is that you open a broker account and you buy the same funds that Wahid is investing in, but you do it yourself. The downsides are that you will have to learn how to find the best broker, you'll have to set up the account, you'll have to find those funds, which may not be easy if you're doing it for the first time, and then you have to manage it on an ongoing basis. And after all of that, it isn't always necessarily such a big saving because you will have to pay brokerage fees that you don't necessarily have to do with Wahid every time you buy a fund. And we've done an analysis in an article with a link in the description below, which shows you in detail what the difference actually ends up being. The second alternative that you can go for is you just buy the individual stocks yourself. So this is even more hands-on than you just setting up a broker and buying the same funds that Wahid do. You are now actually just stripping away all of that and saying, look, I'm just going to go right to the source and invest in the companies themselves. This is a very high risk, high reward approach, and it only makes sense if you are really going to be dedicated to doing your investment research and properly understanding how portfolios are constructed as well, and you do it with a really sincere and long-term mindset. Because if you're going to dabble, then honestly, it's just not worth it. It's not worth just going and picking 10 or 20 random stocks off the back of some stock picks that you've heard from someone. That's not the way to run your investments, and long term that's going to lose you money and it's not going to make you any money. However, if you're serious about it, then this is actually a really lucrative and valuable and interesting way of investing, and it's personally the way I do it, but then I'm quite sad and I actually like investing. So make sure that this is right for you if you take this approach. The third alternative is that you go for a financial advisor and just give them all of the money and they'll do it for you. However, this only makes sense if you have over 100,000 in assets to invest, because the fees that financial advisors charge otherwise mean that if you've got less assets than that, it doesn't really make sense. Should you go for Wahid? This is a good question. So I think it depends on who you are as a person. If you're someone who just wants to give money to someone, is not interested at all in investments, just doesn't want that headache, just wants something simple, then I think Wahid is a fantastic option, and it's the best Islamic fintech robo-advisor out there right now. It's certainly the largest and the one with the largest reach. However, if you are someone who is a little bit more savvy and you're happy to set up a broker account and check into your stocks and your investment every 3 to 6 months, then perhaps going for the broker approach and buying the funds yourself and essentially, cutting out the Wahid fee, that might be a better option for you. But only do that if you're committed to checking in regularly and you're happy about the construction of the portfolio as well. And then you have the DIY option. If you're someone who genuinely enjoys investing and research about stocks, then this is a great option for you, but make sure that you're committed for the long term here. Finally, if you do consider going for Wahid, then please do use our link below, because it helps us support videos like this and our general journalism as well, and helps us produce more videos like this for you. And on that, if you want us to review other products out there in the market, then please do comment below with what you'd like us to review next, and we'll be more than happy to pick one of them and get cracking. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum.